Hello, Constantin. Nice to see you again in our broadcast.
Hello, nice being here. I'm glad you invited me again.
Polish readers have already read, at least some of them, your latest article about the results of the elections to Landtags in Thuringia and Saxony. And what do you mean by claiming that we are witnessing something like a new conservative revolution or even a new national Bolshevik shift in eastern lands of Germany?
Well, what I mean is that a lot of East Germans have nostalgic feelings for the German Democratic Republic. So Germany is basically a divided nation. You have West Germany and you have East Germany. And West Germany is very liberal. The AfD is not very strong in West Germany because of the liberal mindset of most West Germans. The reason why West Germany is very liberal, because after World War II, West Germany was occupied by the Americans and by the British. And American influence is extremely strong and has been very strong ever since the end of World War II in West Germany. And this is the reason why West Germans pretty much ape everything that comes from the United States in terms of ideology, like diversity, multiculturalism, LGBTQ, transgender, all that stuff. So the West Germans accept it, support it, and even love it, and they live it, right? East Germany is a completely different case. East Germany is very conservative compared to West Germany, even today, even over 30 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall. I think it's almost genetic. I mean, it seems to me. And I think the reason why East Germany is more conservative than West Germany, as we have now seen, because if we look at the election results, the AfD is the strongest party in Thuringia and the second strongest party in Saxony. I mean, it almost reached first place in Saxony as well. Well, the reason is, I think it's because it was under socialist rule in the German Democratic Republic for, I mean, almost half a century. I think people really internalized the ideals that were disseminated during communist rule. And contrary to what many people on the right think, these ideals were conservative in nature. Yes, because a lot of people say, like especially people like conservative people or people on the right, they say that communism was left-wing and the Soviet Union wanted to spread, like, I don't know, multiracialism or gay propaganda and all that stuff. But I don't think that's really true, because if you look at the Soviet Union and if you look at the history of the German Democratic Republic, you can see that both these societies were extremely conservative by nature and actually upheld certain national traditions that were already discarded by the West. So East Germany, for example, they re-erected the statue of Frederick the Great in Unter den Linden in East Berlin, because they knew that Frederick the Great was a great leader and for his time in Prussia, progressive at the same time, because he was a populist and he was loved by the people. So when people visit Sanssouci, Frederick the Great's palace in East Berlin today, they always leave potatoes on his grave, yes, because he introduced potatoes to Prussia and it became a staple diet because of him. So, well, it's a symbolic act, basically, but it basically signifies that he was a ruler of the people, loved by the people, and did everything for the people. And this is what the German Democratic Republic claimed also to be, basically. And I think to a large extent it was, yes. So, in my opinion, the German Democratic Republic was the last truly German state, because it was a successor to Prussia, yes, not in name, because it wasn't called Prussia, because Prussia was officially abolished after World War I. Well, and then again after World War II by the Allies. So Prussia ceased to exist in 1945 as a state entity. But in spirit, and also to some extent in territory, it pretty much was a continuation of Prussia, in my opinion. And like, if you look at the change, if you look at videos on YouTube of the changing of the guards in East Berlin, like the goose step marches, it's like unbelievable. I mean, it's very, how to say, it's the opposite of what people on the right think that communism is, right? I mean, you have the field gray uniforms, you have the goose stepping soldiers marching down the streets. So it is a very militaristic tradition at the same time, just like Prussia. And I think Ernst Niekisch, who was the main National Bolshevik ideologue in Weimar, Germany, he was imprisoned by the Nazis in World War II in Buchenwald concentration camp, was freed by the Soviets, and then after the war was first quite active in East Germany. And he had the idea of actually officially renaming the German Democratic Republic to Prussia, which of course wasn't done. But yeah, he basically formulated National Bolshevism as follows. He basically said that Germany should not follow the West because Germany basically has a completely different spirit than the West. So I think you can go back to different philosophers. I think one of the main ones is Werner Sombart. He wrote a famous book called Traitors and Heroes, where he compares the mentality of the English with the mentality of the Germans. So he says that the English have the traitor mentality and the Germans have the hero mentality. Of course, his book was published during World War I, so it's sort of propagandistic, but I think the essence is true. And Niekisch also realized this. He said that the West is mercantile, capitalist, and only interested in superficial values, but not real traditions. And Germany is closer to the East, meaning to Russia and Eastern Europe, than it is to the West. And in the Weimar Republic, Ernst Niekisch propagated the idea that Germany should ally itself with the Soviet Union, not necessarily because of the communist ideology, but because of the Soviet Union's anti-liberal stance and its stance against plutocracy and against the capitalist West. And I think the German Democratic Republic pretty much followed in Ernst Niekisch's footsteps in terms of ideology.
But it's not only the matter of geography, I guess, because, well, you come from western part of Germany. Sahra Wagenknecht as well comes from the western part of Germany. And even as far as I know, Björn Höcke, the leader of AfD in Thuringen, was born not in Thuringen, but in the western part, right? So
Yes.
what do you think, what is the level of influence of this, let's say, East German thinking, in Germany as a whole? I mean, in the German Länder, in the Western Länder.
Yeah, I don't think the influence is very big outside of East Germany. I think most West Germans are quite unaffected by it. As you can see from the election results that the AfD got in the West German states. Sahra Wagenknecht, yes, she's from the West originally. She's half Iranian. Her father was from Iran. And that's why you have this unique spelling of her first name, because it's an Iranian spelling, I suppose. And because usually the H is after the second A. She was actually a Stalinist, right, in her younger years. Like she was part of the communist platform, yes, of Die Linke several years ago. And you can still read, or maybe not anymore, but you were able to read a lot of the essays that she wrote for the communist platform, and a lot of them were favorable towards Stalin even, yes, which I suppose some people might have a problem with, but it shows that her thinking is, I would say, is in tune with National Bolshevism, because in communism you always have these two strains, right? Like the Trotskyite strain and the Stalinist strain. And I think the Trotskyite strain is what you see today. It's with the Democrats in the United States, so with the Antifa in Germany, with this permanent revolution of degeneracy and trying to overthrow the traditional order just for destruction's sake, basically. I think this is very Trotskyist. While Stalin, on the other hand, propagated socialism in one country, which is already national communism in itself, and basically Stalin abolished all the quote-unquote progressive measures that were introduced by the early Bolsheviks. Like he recriminalized homosexuality, he got rid of the degenerate art and basically introduced socialist realism as a state art, which you can still see if you go to Moscow. If you look at the subway, the beautiful murals, the beautiful paintings, the neo-Gothic architecture. So it's very European in spirit, and traditionally so, what Stalin introduced. I mean, I think I forgot who said it. It was some Italian fascist. I don't remember which one, but he basically said that communism under Stalin in the Soviet Union was basically Russian fascism. Yes, because of the similarity in spirit, I suppose. Yes, and that's why I guess it was also very easy prior to World War II for communists to become National Socialists, and vice versa. A lot of National Socialists became communists because of sort of like some unspoken spiritual affinity between these systems. Mm-hmm. Yes, but sorry, going back to your question. Yeah, unfortunately, I think in West Germany is not very much influenced by this particular spirit. And this is why a lot of people say that basically Germany needs secession. It needs to separate into two entities, right? West Germany, where they can where they continue with mass immigration and, I don't know, gender ideology and all that stuff to their heart's content. And East Germany, yes, where they can basically restrict immigration and focus on traditional German values. So basically we have two Germanys, yes, and maybe it's better that the two Germanys shouldn't mix. Some people say, some people argue.
And when it comes to the issue of time and generations, I knew personally some, let's say, GDR officials like Hans Modrow or Egon Krenz. I've met them, and I also had an impression that they are quite conservative when it comes to the standards of the contemporary left, at least, yes. Nevertheless, 34 years have passed. Yeah. So the re-education attempt of, let's say, the pro-US elites of the United Germany, of the unified Germany, seems to be ineffective, because still the youth, the young people, yeah, prefer voting for AfD or for Sahra Wagenknecht, right?
Well, this is correct. Yes, and even in West Germany, the youth, a large percentage of the youth, would vote or does vote for the AfD. So in general, like in Germany proper, like in all of Germany, more young people vote for the AfD than older people. This is especially true in East Germany. I think the reason for this is because young people are more affected by mass immigration, because they have to deal with the consequences in the schoolyards and also at universities, on the street and everything. While a lot of old people, they're very secluded, like in the house, in the apartment. They don't really even see what's happening on the street. So they think everything's okay, you know, diversity is beautiful, Germany is colorful, so we need more diverse migrants from all over the world. But young people think this is not a particularly good thing, right? Because of the negative baggage that it brings along with it.
Well, let's imagine for a while that the secession is going to happen. Is it possible, first and foremost, from the legal point of view? I was wondering, because some of the German lands are called, I think, Thuringian as well, yes? Freistaat, which means free state. So
Yes.
would it be, from purely legal point of view, would it be possible to abandon, to leave the Federal Republic for them?
Yeah, well, realistically speaking, no. I don't even think it's possible. Yes, I mean, it's a dream that people have. Like, you have this organization in Saxony called the Freie Sachsen, the Free Saxons, and it is their ultimate goal to make Saxony like an independent entity, like the people in the independent Texas movement, for example, right, want to make Texas an independent country. I mean, economically it would be possible, but like you said, legally it would be very, very difficult. And I think the federal government would never allow it, yes, for Saxony to secede, because why should they allow it? Yes,
Or
there's no
those who
reason
stay
for them to allow
behind
it.
the federal government?
Sorry?
Or those, particularly those who stay
Oh,
behind the federal government, I mean, the US.
exactly. No, of course, of course. I mean, it's legally, I mean, realistically, it's not feasible, I think, right? I mean, a lot of things would have to happen geopolitically for a truly free East Germany to come into reality. Yes.
Mhm.
But we can see how the world is today, in what situation geopolitically. It is in constant flux and things are changing almost on a daily basis. So I wouldn't rule out the possibility. But like I said, a lot of things would have to happen, yes, in terms of power shifts, yes, multipolarity versus unipolarity, etc. I think everything in the end depends on the decline of the American empire.
Mhm. And what about the economic aspects? Do you think that such a country, let's imagine that we have Eastern Germany under the name of Prussia, or any other name, yes, would it be possible with its economic potential to survive?
From what I talked to people from the Free Saxons last time I was in East Germany, and they laid it out for me in very logical terms. And according to them, especially Saxony, would be able to survive and even thrive, even be successful as an independent state. And I think it would even be able to support maybe other states like Thuringia. But as far as I know, they have enough industry to support their population, which is rather small anyway, as far as I know.
Mhm. But what about Berlin? Is in such a vision, would it be divided again, or you see the, let's say, Eastern spirit in Berlin as well? Because as far as I know, even Berlin is politically divided. I mean, still you can see the differences between the districts of the former East Berlin and the former West Berlin.
Yeah, strangely, Berlin is equally divided, like the whole country, right? And the most interesting thing is that the GDR ceased to exist like 35 years ago almost. Yes, I mean it's more than one generation ago, and people still have this mentality. It's so deeply ingrained in the East Germans. It's luckily impossible for the West Germans to exercise this spirit. And well, what about Berlin? Well, ideally, you'd have a situation like you had in the past, right? You have West Berlin, where they can do their degenerate stuff, and then you have East Berlin, where they can also do their own thing. Or even more ideally would be to have Berlin as a whole as the capital of a future East German state, and basically ask the people who do not agree with, say, East German Prussian values people who live in Berlin, to relocate to the West and maybe make, I don't know, Frankfurt the new capital of West Germany, right?
Mhm.
Which would be more in line with the West German liberal spirit and spirit of finance anyway.
Actually, I have also noticed, and it still exists, I think, the deep contempt of some Western Germans for the so-called Aussies. Also in Berlin, I just can tell you about, let's say, everyday situations, like, driving a car with one of my friends who comes from western part of Germany, but now lives in Berlin. and offending the another driver, calling him an Aussie. It must be an Aussie. So is it still existing? I mean, from the other side, the contempt of the Western part of the Western liberal part of the Western Germans to the so-called Aussies?
Yes, absolutely. I hear about it all the time. Like one of my friends just told me also recently that one of her colleagues was complaining about the East German parasites, how they're still stealing our money, basically, because the West Germans have to pay some sort of special tax that still supports the reconstruction of East Germany. And they really resent it, right? But at the same time, these West Germans have zero problem with the fact that the German government spends billions and billions of euros on non-European immigrants, right? I mean, neither Germans nor Europeans, people from the Arab world, people from Africa, and West Germans don't care about this. They care about having to spend a few extra euros on their, I don't know, East German compatriots, which is very strange, but I think it has everything to do with a anti-German agenda of the current German government. Yes, and the same with the establishment and the media, which promotes this view basically. The anti-German view in general, and specifically the view that East Germans are dangerous extremists and backwards people that somehow need to be contained or controlled.
And what is the factor of foreign policy in the elections and in political attitudes in the eastern part of Germany? Because for me, it was quite interesting to read about the electoral campaign in Thuringia and in Saxony, and to find out that a lot of politicians, particularly I think Sahra Wagenknecht, but AfD as well, to a lesser extent, talked a lot about foreign policy, about the war in Ukraine, about Russia. Is it so important as a factor for the voters, for the people there in eastern lands of Germany?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that is actually the biggest factor. I think the biggest factor is immigration. People just don't like to see people from countries outside of Europe coming to their villages and taking over their towns. I think this is the number one factor. Foreign policy might be a factor, but in my opinion, it's not a very big one. But you're absolutely right. Like Sahra Wagenknecht is completely against the German government support of Ukraine, and she wants to make a peace as soon as possible. And she wants to continue getting oil from Russia, right? Because it's good for the German economy, which is very logical. And a lot of people from the AfD argue likewise. Yes. And I think, yes, certain people, or maybe even a sizable portion of voters in East Germany, also consider this because the German economy is clearly suffering because of the conflict and because of the sanctions that were imposed on Russia, but which are really hurting Germany much more than Russia. Yes. So I think a lot of businesses and business owners that depended on cheap Russian gas and cheap Russian oil, yes, they would certainly like to see a policy turnaround. And I think, yeah, I think this might have affected people's decisions to vote for either the AfD or the BSW, the Sahra Wagenknecht party.
I've just read in Der Spiegel, I believe, that Volkswagen is going to close for the first time in its history a factory in Germany, or even two factories. So how the economic crisis of the whole Federal Republic, of course, is a result of, as you have said, of the sanctions policy, as well as the green agenda, of course. But how the crisis can impact the feelings and opinions of Eastern Germans. I mean, I think, if I'm not wrong, that the most important thing for them, for those who supported the reunification and so on, was the economic factor and, let's say, kind of soft power of Western Germany in economic and social policy terms. Yes, and now we see that it's vanishing. I mean, the whole economic attractiveness of the West. So, is it also possible that this deep economic crisis and social crisis as well might even strengthen the ideas of those who think and start to talk about creating a new Eastern Germany state?
Oh yeah, well, of course, 100%. I have several East German friends here in West Germany as well. One of them has lived in West Germany for over 20 years or even 30 years. And he said that he feels, well, he's an older gentleman, and he feels that now in West Germany today, he feels more oppressed than he did when he was still a citizen of the German Democratic Republic. Yes, like sitting in a restaurant, he talks positively about the AfD, and the person from the neighboring table who's not even part of the conversation verbally attacks him. Yes, he feels like he's being spied on by the people, like people want to control his thoughts, people want to control his speech. And I think people in East Germany feel likewise, like you said, soft power. Yes, that was the original pull for the East Germans, yes, towards the West. I thought, okay, now we have all this, like, you know, like California with the palm trees, and we get all the freedoms, we get to travel, we can go to Mallorca and all that cool American stuff. But now I think a lot of people have become completely disillusioned, yes, because now they see the reality of the West and the consequences of Western policies, and they frankly they don't like it, yes. And I think the soft power has no pull anymore in East Germany, yes. And this is why a lot of young people are gravitating now towards the AfD or even Sahra Wagenknecht's party, because they don't view the West as the shining city on the hill anymore that people should migrate to. They want to concentrate on their own traditions and their own values. And of course, the economic crisis only exacerbates this problem. Yes. Because as we all know, an economic crisis is the biggest driver, has always been the biggest driver in human history for social change. Yes.
Mhm.
So the worse the economic situation becomes, the more fertile the soil will become on which parties like the AfD and the BSW can grow and prosper.
I see. And let's come back to your vision, geopolitical vision and political vision of new Eastern German state. I agree with you that it might sound as a kind of political fiction for the moment being, but things are changing very fast in contemporary geopolitics. So it might be as well possible even in a few years. My question is about my country, Poland. I know that it's difficult, but well, in my country, Prussia as such is perceived through the lens of our difficult history, let's say, yes, the conflicts between us and so on. Do you think that theoretically, such a country as new Eastern German state could build more or less friendly relations with Poland, with Czech Republic, and so on?
Oh, well, of course, I certainly hope so. I'm pro-Polish, I'm pro-Czech. I have a lot of Polish friends. I have a lot of Czech friends. I regularly visit the Czech Republic. I've been to Poland numerous times. And a lot of Polish people live in East Germany anyway. So I don't think on the personal level, there's really any animosity left between East Germans or Germans in general and Poles. I think it's like historical grievances because of border disputes in the past. And I think I'm against all forms of revanchism. Like, I would never demand like the old borders of Germany back, or I would never say that East Prussia should go back to Germany, because it's completely ridiculous, because it's too long ago, and these parts are completely ethnically Polish now. Yes, and they should remain so, of course, in my opinion. So I think this is a prerequisite to establish friendly relations between, say, Germany and Poland, to basically stop all kinds of revanchist demands and basically have a sort of reset button to start over, basically, and focus on similarities, shared values, shared ideals, rather than bygone grievances from certain historical periods that are really not relevant anymore.
I would even add
the
shared roots, because I remember from my home city, from Szczecin, former Szczecin, that we were quite afraid of, let's say, the economic and the cultural expansion, potential expansion of Germany in our city and in our region. But time has passed, nothing as such has happened. And for instance, now most of people living in my home city support the idea and have nothing against the fact that some squares in the city, for instance, are named after German Bürgermeisters, like Hacken Square, Ackermann Street, and so on. Yes, so they accept the fact that the history of the city as such, of the region as such, is German history as well. And I think that's very important for building, let's say, an identity which is free of any kind of revanchism, chauvinism, fears about that, and so on. As well as in Germany, in eastern part of Germany, actually, I have noticed that, the largest reconstructed early medieval Slavic village is in Torgelov, which is in East Germany.
Yes, I've been there, and actually there are several reconstructed Slavic villages. There's one in Brandenburg that I visited with a friend of mine last year. It's also quite extensive. So, and it's very descriptive and very beautifully done. So they certainly do honor the Slavic heritage, because undeniably, a lot of these Germans, if not the majority, are originally of Slavic descent. Yes.
Yeah, so we have possibility to find on the cultural, on the identity level, to find some really, let's say, common elements which could unite us on at least on a metapolitical level, and also which could help us get rid of any kinds of fears and revanchisms and so on and so on. So I agree with you. So such an Eastern German country possibly could become a part of new Eastern and Central Europe, the more conservative one, the more traditionalist one, within a new, let's say, geopolitical but also civilizational divide of Europe in the past, in the future, right?
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree, and I think it's necessary, and I think the time has come. Yes, I think the future of Europe, if Europe has a future, is in the East. It's Eastern Europe and Russia. Yes, so I would say starting from East Germany to Vladivostok, basically everything before, I think, is pretty much lost, in my opinion. Yes, but of course things might change, so we'll see. But I think the true alliances should be forged in Eastern Europe, right? Like you said, between East Germany, Poland, Czech Republic, maybe Hungary, Romania, etc. Because these countries are still, I would say, in terms of mentality, rather normal, yes, compared to the West's mentality.
Last question: if a new Eastern German state would be created, would you move from the western part of Germany to the east?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Actually, as a matter of fact, I'm already considering moving to East Germany. Yes.
Oh, so now let's say, a soft power situation is the opposite. I mean, it becomes the opposite as it was in the past. I mean that the soft power of Eastern German culture and mentality is prevailing for at least some Germans over the soft power or the former soft power of the US-controlled Western Germany, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, 100% true. I mean, I know several West Germans that have voluntarily relocated to East Germany and are much happier there. Yes, because they feel more at home with the people there, and they can communicate freely with the people, they can socialize freely. They don't have to hide their identity, they don't have to hide who they are like they have to in West Germany in order to fit into the liberal society.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Constantin. In a few weeks, we have another interesting elections to Brandenburg Landtag.
Exactly.
So perhaps we'll go back to this discussion and continue this discussion after the Brandenburg election, if you don't mind.
No, I would like to. Thank you.